Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Nikki Jovicic from LookUpStrata. We're very excited to welcome Rod Smith from the Strata Collective for this webinar. During this session, we'll be discussing everything New South Wales Strata. Please note that the information discussed today refers solely to New South Wales legislation. Before we begin, I'd like to mention that the information contained in this session, including the discussions that arise from submitted questions, is not legal advice and should not be relied upon as legal advice. You should seek independent advice before acting on the information contained in this session. I'm delighted to introduce our panelists today. The Strata Collective Managing Director, Rod Smith, has a Bachelor of Commerce and has been a Strata Manager for over 16 years. Rod currently sits on the SCA New South Wales Strata Managers Subcommittee and has previously been elected as a representative to the UDIA, which is the Development Peak Body, Strata Management Chapter for 5 years. The Strata Collective was the winner of the 2018 SCA Small Strata Manager of the Year New South Wales Award. Rod has been a regular contributor to the LookUpStrata blog, answering questions and contributing content since around 2016. Rod appears on over 30 blog articles on our site and a variety of videos on our YouTube channel. Welcome to the webinar this morning again, Rod.
Thank you, Nikki. It's great to be here from lockdown Sydney. Our entire team is working from home at the moment, so we're very fortunate and very thankful for our VoIP phones and our VPN internet connections via our laptops. So yeah, we're bashing away, business as usual, but just in this weird season, we just have to all do it from home and over Zoom. So yeah, so it's great to be here.
Excellent. And it's great that we have this, this channel that we can actually sit and talk to people this morning, which is really fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic. Ignore the bikes and the drum kit in the back there. I have to share my office with 3 young children. So yeah, so it's great to be here.
Excellent. I'm sure everybody understands that, Rod. That's fine. All right. Well, I might throw to you now to start the presentation. I'm really excited to see this. We had a quick chat about it yesterday on the phone, and it sounds like you've got some fantastic information to share with everybody.
Yeah, fantastic. So what I thought, Nikki, I'll do is I did a bit of a presentation. I hope that's okay, just to give some framework and feedback. And I wanted to give some insight into how I look at a strata scheme when I'm coming in cold, when I've had nothing to do with them. New buildings come on about 1 a month, and I just wanted to give the Strata Committee a bit of the people who are on this call and the Strata Committee members a bit of an insight in terms of where do I start, what do I do, how can I help, and what do we do. So I'll just load up my presentation here.
Okay, that all sounds fantastic. Really, really good.
Can we see that okay?
Yes, that looks great.
Excellent. Strata Collective presentation on high performing Strata committees. So it's been told to me previously that Strata committees and the owners corporations are one of the largest volunteer organisations in Australia. So it's really important that we get this right. So I wanted to give a bit of a legal framework about what they're required to do in terms of the Strata committee. So the overview I've got for today is first thing is the decisions of the Strata committee, then the obligations of the owners corporations. So I'm starting to narrow it down, how I approach managing a strata scheme, understanding your bylaws, strata committee meetings and agendas, and the ideal strata committee member. And in terms of the ideal strata committee member, I've got quite a strong view on who I think are ideal strata committee members. And I hope it's refreshing to your clients on this call. You do not have to be lawyers or engineers or anything. I'll go through that in a bit of detail when we get to it. So without any further ado, I'll just launch off. So the decision of the Strata Committee. So what is it actually that the Strata Committee are entrusted to do? So Section 36 of the Strata Schemes Management Act, New South Wales 2015 states that the decisions of the Strata Committee are taken to be the decisions of the owners corporation. So what that means is that the Strata Committee, when they meet, they're actually making decisions for the owners corporation. And I'll go through the key thing that they're making decision on in a moment. However, in the event of a disagreement between the owners corporation and the Strata Committee, the decision of the owners corporation prevails. So the owners corporation as in all the owners at either an AGM or an extraordinary general meeting can always make decisions that that instruct the strata committee on what they want to happen at the building. For example, if the strata committee says we don't need to paint this year, an owner can bring a motion at the AGM and say the strata committee be instructed to arrange painting over the next 12 months, and then the strata committee is required to do that. So the owners corporation actually has a veto right over the strata committee, if that makes sense. The owners corporation may in general meeting continue to exercise all or any of the functions conferred to it or conferred on it by this act but the bylaws, even though the strata committee hold office. So that's sort of what I said before. So strata committee makes decisions of the owners corporation. However, the owners corporation can still take anything to a general meeting and make that decision. So the strata committee aren't the alpha and the omega, but they do have the responsibility to make those decisions. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, it does, Rod. And we just had one question come in.
Yeah.
Someone's asked, does this cover community associations as well?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a similar sister provision in the community association legislation. The community associations legislation is currently being reviewed. I'm not sure if you've received an update on that, but that's coming in soon. So it's I think, how's my maths, 32 years in the making. So watch out for that as well. It's coming. That's in New South Wales as well. I'll need to dig out that section in the legislation, but there is a sister provision. Okay, so that's the decisions of the strata committee. So what are the obligations on the owners corporation? So you've got to make these decisions for the owners corporation. Okay, well, what are the obligations of the owners corporation? And the fundamental thing an owners corporation is required to do, this is the number one thing, they're required to maintain and repair common property. An owners corporation for a strata scheme must properly maintain and keep in a state of good and serviceable repair the common property and any personal property vested in the owners corporation. So you must maintain and keep in a good state of repair. So that's something that I think a lot of owners corporations forget. They look at the cost of something and say, oh, it's too expensive, or let's just kick that can down the street because it's all too hard. No. The owners corporation is required to maintain and must properly maintain and keep in a good and serviceable repair the common property. So every decision the strata committee makes regarding the property needs to boil down this. And if I go on to the next section, the owners corporation must renew or replace any fixtures or fittings comprising in the common property and any personal property vested in the owners corporation. So it's an absolute obligation, and I'll continue on in a moment on that. So this is a new section that's only been around for the last 5 years. There's actually damages against an owners corporation for a breach of a statutory duty. So what that means in English is a legal duty. Any reasonable foreseeable loss suffered by an owner as a result of a contravention of this section by the owners corporation. So the owners corporation must maintain common property. So if you go to every meeting with that framework in mind, that's really helpful for you in terms of what you should be making, what decisions you should be making at your meetings. Yeah, so I could give it a bunch of examples on that, but usual things are leaks into apartments, plumbing works, and just general maintenance around the property, fixing door handles, making sure the property is secured, painting when it needs to be done, repairs to railings, it's safety items. These are all the sort of things that strata committees need to take decisions on behalf of the owners corporation. So that's the legal background. What are we doing and so forth. So what I wanted to now start to do, when I pick up a strata scheme, the first thing I speak to the committee about is what's outstanding at the building. What do we need to get onto? Are there any cracked, dangerous tiles? Are there any repairs and maintenance to people that we're required to do? Are there any leaks? Are these, what do we need to fix in order to meet the requirements of Section 106? That's the first thing I do. Get an action list of items and start to prioritize them with the committee. Then the next thing is, does the strata have enough money to meet their legal obligations? So if we don't, if there's $100,000 worth of repair and we've got $20,000, well, we need to put together a plan on that. Are we going to stage some of these works over a period of time that are non-urgent? And or are we going to increase the levies? Are we going to get a strata loan? How are we going to meet our legal obligations? So that's the next thing I look at. After that, what I then look at is the Capital Works Fund report. So what I'll start to look at with the Strata Committee is what do the professionals think needs to be done at the building? Do these things need to be done at the building? And do we have enough money to do them? So start to put together a plan for the future. What needs to happen? What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? And also looking at the levies. If the Capital Works Fund report says we need to be raising, $10,000 a year, and at present we're raising $3 million, there's probably going to be a problem down the track. So I need to start to work with the Strata Committee about how we're going to address that to meet the requirements of the legislation. Usually if we start managing a building, there's a list of outstanding items. So there may be long-term bylaw breaches, there may be unapproved renovations, there may be bylaws that need to be passed or drafted or registered. So what else is in there? Work out the priorities and then start to call some meetings and take some decisions, get some quotes together, start to work on that plan with the Strata Committee. I can see some chat questions coming through. Is there anything that I need to speak on at this point before I move on?
I think it's fine. There's a couple of questions that I've copied down that we hopefully can get to at the end of the session, Rod. And if anything comes in that might be best mentioned straight away, I'll pop it in for you. But I think, I've got 2 questions that we'll refer to at the end of your presentation, if you like.
Sure. Feel free to interrupt me. I can speak underwater with a mouthful of marbles. So I'll just keep bashing away. I've got a few more points to go through. So hopefully they'll be helpful.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So expenditure protocols. Now, this is one of the things that I think owners corporations get wrong. I've heard famous stories about owners corporations requiring strata managers to get 8 quotes for letterbox lock replacements. Now, when I talk to one of our strata buildings, I think there is a graph, and if you imagine an inverse, I can't remember the maths term, but an inverse graph where time and results take place. So the more quotes we get, the longer it takes for things to be done and the more upset owners get. So in our business, I've found that usually works under $1,000. We've got a great bunch of trades that we work with on day-to-day things. If it's in budget, and we always have general provisions in our budget to complete repairs and maintenance, we just get on with it in conjunction with the committee. So normally there'll be 1 or 2 key people from each strata committee that we work with to ensure that we maintain and repair common properties. So we just get on with those minor items to keep the building ticking over as long as it's common property. Then beyond that, if it's over $1,000, it's usually something significant. So we'll get a couple of quotes. Depending on how much the value of the work and the complexity of the work, we may then seek extra additional input from consultants and the like, or we may get, say, 2 or 3 or 4 builders to have a look at the work. But in order to, fast track and streamline operations, whilst making sure that there's suitable governance, in most of our strata schemes, we would be authorised to complete work under $1,000 with approved trades. If you've got a building manager or strata or not strata manager, would normally obtain 2 quotes for work $1,000 to $2,500, which is an urgent, and work beyond 2,500 would normally discuss that with the committee and see what they wanted to do, depending on how urgent it is. If they're just testing, say, the market on painting quotes or something like that, we might only get a couple of quotes initially, and then we might get 1 or 2 more once we've got the funds ready to go. So yeah, so there's some of the protocols and processes that we use in order to make sure that we get work going in buildings, but also make sure that there's suitable governance so that the owners corporations have that level of comfort that they're getting good value for money, and also so that the tradespeople in our business don't get too comfortable and start getting ahead of themselves. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, that does, right? That sounds good. We've actually got one question that might be pertinent to the conversation because you're right in the middle of it now.
Yeah.
Does the OC pass a resolution for expenditure protocols?
Some of our strata committees do. It depends on how. So the first thing to look at is what your strata manager can approve under their agreement. So the strata manager has delegation to complete repairs. Say, I think in our business, it's up to $2,500. After that, we have to go to the strata committee. But this is normally how we do. Yeah, so that'll be the first protocol. Have a look at your strata agency agreements, see what, or speak to your strata manager, see what they're able to approve on that. But if the building is quite contentious and there are people that are wanting the 8 quotes for letterbox locks and so forth, normally we'd pass a motion so that we can say, Tony, no, remember, this is our process. This is what we're doing and this is how we work. So have a look at your agency agreement. And if it is controversial, just get a majority to pass a motion like this.
Okay, great. And we've got another one too to do with that. If the strata committee is minded to carry out works that are outside the current budget, what do you think the role of the strata manager is?
It depends on the scope or the scale. If you've got a general, and it depends on the restrictions on the strata committee. So there's, I haven't gone into it today, but owners corporation at every annual general meeting has the opportunity to restrict expenditure on strata committees. So one of our blocks, the strata committee can't approve work over $30,000. It all needs to come back to a general meeting. So they call 3 or 4 general meetings a year just to approve works that they're building because they've got a lot to do. So that's the first thing. Check your restrictions. If it's, say you've got a general budget of $10,000 and you've got no restrictions and the work actually, you go and get 3 quotes and it's actually $12,000, most of my strata committees would just get on with it. But if you've got quite a controversial building, you can always just put it back to an extra in general meeting for a decision on that item. But that's in New South Wales. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we might leave you to go back to your presentation now for a little while, if that's okay.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. So I thought I'd show you some meeting agendas and minutes examples about how we as a business keep our buildings on track. So here we go. So it's quite long. This is a block with about 80 apartments, and they had a lot of work to be done. So we got brought on just under a year ago, and there was just heaps outstanding. So what did I do? They had a building manager. So what did I do? I started to put a list together because it was huge. And then at each meeting, we'd just go through with the building manager just to see where things were up to and get updates. So so this is how we did it. So the first item is the minutes, the previous meeting. Then there was matters arising. Any matters arising from the last meeting be discussed and actioned. But because so many of these items were for the building manager, we popped it in their report just so that it was really clear about who's responsible for each item. Does that make sense? So we just listed it there. We also had a throwaway motion at the bottom that any other repairs or maintenance items be completed. So if there was items that came up and were raised at the meeting, like say a repair to something that needed to be done, we then had the ability to just to pass a resolution. Yep, get on with it. So yep, so that's how we did that.
Can I just, sorry, Rod, just jump
Yep.
in there. We did have one question that came in that was submitted, and it's just about this matter really. And the question was, at quarterly strata meetings with the committee and strata manager, can general business be added as an agenda item? This may seem like a simple question, but I've been told this is not allowed and I do not understand why.
So that's correct. Rather than general business, we have that any other repairs and maintenance items be completed. So that way you can list and accept any general business, but I wouldn't let it get to that's normally more the minor sort of stuff, like more around this sort of 1,000 to 2,500, which I can do under my agreement. I wouldn't let them, I saw something come in from the chat, a committee changing a gardening contract from 90 grand to $340,000. I wouldn't let them do that. I just think that's just not wise governance, and such a massive, just sorry to jump in and go off track. I just saw it come in the chat. Someone said there was a thing, the committee went from 90 to 340. I don't know the background on that, but that's the sort of change, if it's not budgeted and not discussed at the AGM, I would be putting to a general meeting, just because it's so significant. And also with an EGM agenda like that, where there's such a significant change, I'd have a cover letter explaining, to the average Joe owner, what all this is about, because the reality is 80 to 90% of owners in strata schemes, most strata schemes, just pay the levies and have no idea what's really going on and don't really care. So it sort of gives them a bit of a context about what's going on, the reasons behind the decision, and the need for that change. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank
Sorry
you.
to get off topic, but yeah, the way I deal with general business is other repairs or maintenance items to be completed. And if there's something just on that topic, this is something let's just say something comes from left field and it's totally, it's quite urgent. What I'd normally do is with my committees is discuss it, get everyone to agree, and then you just send out a paper meeting agenda straight after the meeting just to confirm that decision. So everyone has the discussion. Yep, at the meeting, actually we can't pass that motion. What we'll do is we just send out a paper meeting, send back your voting forms, and happy days. So that's something I've done in my buildings as well, which may be an option for you.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on, we always table the financial statements at each of our meetings and the arrears list. And then I've always got a motion of compliance and approvals so that we can approve things such as, I think this feels a flooring application, or someone have a kitchen application, but they've got a minor works bylaw where the committee can approve it. Building management tender, so they ran a building management tender, and the main reason is because there's, I think we got down to item T in the building manager's report that he hadn't actioned. So a lot of strata schemes get in the trap of just, oh, yep, we'll do it later. But like in running, people that run businesses or have a team, a general manager, or operations manager or whatever, if you don't write it down and you don't list it and track it and follow it up, nothing gets done. And so this is how we keep everyone on task, writing it down, following it up at our quarterly meetings, and this is how progress happens. So and then we always determine the next meeting. So so that's one of our agendas. If you're a smaller scheme, it doesn't have to be as fancy as that. You can just have minutes, matters arising, the financials, compliance approvals, and the next meeting, and you can just, or matters arising, new matters, financials, next meeting. So you can tailor it for however you like it, but it just gives you a bit of a framework to follow. Another thing I've seen, I'm not sure, I'll get to that when I speak to minutes. Is this all right? Just keep going?
Yeah, it is. It's great. That's fabulous.
Right.
Yeah, thank you, Rod. Sorry, I'm just reading the comments as you're going through it. We did get a question come in from John saying the effective prohibition on non-agenda business really only applies to general meetings. The only requirement for strata committee meetings is for a detailed agenda.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Just
great.
have a detailed agenda. Yeah. But my point was, I've seen buildings try to pass major works through, you know, those general items. I just don't think it's great governance. So in terms of the fulfilling of that general, that detailed agenda, I think you're better off just being as transparent as you can. So, and this is a set of minutes. Hopefully I've got out anything. So reviewed and determined by email. Quotations been accepted, works to be completed these dates. So we try and list some specifics to help our everyone stay on track and try and give as much information as we can. Yeah, it's quite detailed. Yeah. Full certification.
Yeah, that looks great. Now we've had quite a few people ask Rod if we're able to provide a copy of this excuse me, to everyone later today. So is that okay with you if we send a copy of the slides out?
I'll probably sanitize and make sure that there's nothing exciting in there about my specific strata, but I think I dealt with a lot of that. So yeah, that's fine. Happy to help if we can.
Okay, and we've just had another quick question come in saying, are the discussions recorded in the minutes or just the decisions?
Look, the lawyers have told, the lawyers suggest to me that you just write the decisions. I normally won't discuss, you know, oh, Larry said this and Joanne said that, and, you know, all that sort of thing. But if there's any detail such as date of the works, anything that's helpful for our committees, for our owners, that they might be interested in, I'll include that. Because minutes go to all owners, as I think pretty much everyone, well, a lot of people know, all the strata committee meetings minutes go to owners now. So for non-large stratas. So yeah.
Excellent, thanks.
So things like an intercom installation, I think I said, you know, in that minutes that it's been completed on the 5th and 6th of March. They've now got a really good building manager, so they would have sent out a link on Building Link to let everyone know that intercom installations happening over those dates. But people like that sort of information. It's just helpful. So. And this might be a bit controversial, so sorry if it's a bit controversial. Ideal strata committee members. I have a view that people don't need to be subject matter experts in order to be strata committee members. I think who should be an ideal strata committee member? It's the duty of each member of a strata committee of an owners corporation to carry out his or her function with the benefits, so far as practicable, of the owners corporation with due care and diligence. Now, I've seen a lot of instances in strata committees where people are in it for their own reasons. For example, let's just say the building has a no timber flooring bylaw and they want timber flooring. They'll get on the committee and start to chip away at that specific issue, wear everyone down, get what they want, and then say, all right, see you later, have a nice life, and do that. And I just don't think that's what the legislation's intending, people who are acting in the best interest of the owners' corporations. So I think the first thing that needs to come through from a strata committee or a potential strata committee member is the heart. What's your motive behind it? Is it to, you want to contribute back to the building, you want to have a great amenity, you want to improve the asset value because it's a massive business, massive investment for most people, some people's only or largest investment. So, if that's the motive, that you care about the building, you want to help out, that's awesome. Excellent. We'll bring the training and the resources. You bring the attitude and the willingness to work and learn. So that's my view on the way that it should be and is meant to be. I've had buildings where people have moved owners off committees because they don't have those right motives. They're in it for themselves, and I've seen it happen a lot of times. So yeah, so I just wanted to start off with that controversial point, which hopefully isn't too controversial. So I've got an article on our website about, oh, sorry, Nikki.
Oh, sorry, I was just about to ask in that, just on that point that you've just made, we've had a comment come in from Ian saying we have a committee member who very rarely answers emails or attends meetings. Should we do anything?
I will tell you what one of my buildings has done at another. I hear what you're saying, Ian, and it's really frustrating, isn't it? It's because I've got a block at the moment where there's a committee of 5 and there's 2 really awesome active people who love the building, great to work with, help us out, we'll take on projects, will support us when we make a recommendation, or like perfect. But the other 3, we don't hear from them. So it's like, how are we going to get a majority decision when no one comes back to us on anything? So I think you need to potentially have an honest conversation with that person and just say how you find it's a lot of work on the strata committee, isn't it? Maybe do you have the time? And if they say, oh, look, I'm really busy with work, it's like, yeah, no worries. But probably at the next AGM, it might be nice to see you at each AGM and leave the strata committee members for the people with the time, because I see it when I come to some of our strata committee members, they haven't even opened up the agenda before they get to the meeting. And it's like, just leave. You're not ready for this meeting. Why are you here? You need to prepare. You need to have the time to think about the issues, ask your fellow committee members or the strata manager if there's anything unclear about before the meeting, so that you can come to the meeting and take the decisions on behalf of the building that you need to take. So I think you're on the right track. I think having a chat to them about, what you how they're going with it all, and if they want to be a part of it, I think that's a good next step.
Yeah, I think that's great. And we do have that question come in a lot too, Rod. So it's obviously happening across the board or in lots of committees. And then another question on this matter too: can the executive committee vote off a committee member if there is misconduct?
So voting off strata committee members, misconduct, you need to act on behalf of the best interests of the owners corporation. So there's that with due care and diligence. So that's a requirement, of the legislation. So misconduct, I guess it's quite broad. It could be bullying, harassment of fellow committee members, owners, or strata managers. It could be, putting forward a quote for carpet repairs when it's actually the brother of your brother, and they didn't disclose it as they're required to do. So that's, I guess it's quite broad. The legislation's quite clear that removing a strata committee member needs to be done at a general meeting by special resolution. You can change office bearers' positions just by a majority resolution at a strata committee meeting. So I recently had a block, one of our large blocks, over 100 apartments in the city. A chairperson on the committee was always 8-1, and the chairperson was the person that was always against what the rest of the committee wanted to do, which is to improve the building. The rest of the committee just got upset about it and said, look, we need to change the chairperson. How do we do it? And all they need to do is pass a resolution to appoint a new chairperson. It's really simple. So they did that at a paper meeting, and it's awkward but necessary conversations. But in terms of removing an owner from a strata committee member, general meeting resolution, you just have to be careful with what information you provide and how you go about that, because there's a recent defamation case. So you can't defame someone. You just need to be really careful and about how you go about that, and make sure that you've actually got proof and it's not just a suspicion, etc. So yeah, hopefully that helps.
And we've got lots of questions coming in. Some people are saying that they have submitted questions, and thank you for popping them in there again, but we do have a copy of those ones, so we will hopefully refer to them towards the end. And other questions I've kind of copied down if we're not going to discuss them right now, and if we don't get to them within the session, we'll certainly get back to you with a response. But I've just seen one come in, or a comment come in from Ray, saying we have a management handbook that spells out clearly what the duties of the SC members are. It's proved to be quite successful and well received. Is that a good idea, do you think, Rod?
Oh, that's awesome. Absolutely. I'd love to see it. Yeah, that's great. Fantastic. Yeah, so, excellent.
Yeah. Ray, if you can provide us with a copy, that would be great. Just send it through to my email address or Rod's, and yeah, the information should be in the registration for the webinar. But yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He said, "I'm sure you would, Rod."
Yeah, that's great, because yeah, the reality is owners join committees and they're not really sure what they've got to do, and they sort of learn it on the fly. So here's a bit of a list of things that ideal Strata committee members: enthusiastic and positive about serving their owners' Strata building, is willing to work with the other Strata committee members. So it's one thing to know more than everyone else, but it's another thing to lord it over everyone else and make them feel like ants and make them feel like your way is the only way. So working with committee members, and it is because I was the chairperson of a block of 11, and one of the owners, wanted to do something that I knew wouldn't work. And I said, it's just not going to work. And everyone said, no, we've got to do it. We've got to do it. So I just had to say, okay, off you go for it. And then 12 months later, didn't work. It's like, I kind of knew that, but I just need to take the punch in the face on it and just move on and just let them go, because that's what everyone wanted to do. And it's a democracy in Strata. So yeah. Have sufficient time to attend Strata meetings, phone calls and emails promptly. Half an hour to an hour of time per week for larger buildings, less for smaller buildings. Some of the participants in this chat rolling their eyes thinking half an hour to an hour a week, I wish. But yeah, it is a commitment, and being prepared to email prompt within sort of 48 hours or each day it's really important. Willing to report any issues that property to management, so bylaw breaches, repairs. They're the sort of things that owners can really help with, because we're not on site all the time. So fire doors not locking properly or being chocked open by residents, which is a breach of the fire regulations, constantly barking dogs, partying apartments, people trashing the place, helping us with those sort of things so that we can work with you to resolve them. That's really, 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 really helpful. So yeah, too many reallys. Is familiar with receiving professional advice. Example from a lawyer and accountant. It's common sense required to assess the information and advice provided to make decisions as and when required, even if the decisions run into thousands of dollars. So it's really important to have the right professionals involved and to take advice. And if the advice is too vague, to be able to determine that it's too vague, or potentially take another advice. So often I see people trying to rush off down a direction without taking proper building advice on things. So it's actually really important to be able to take that advice. And basic understanding of trends and financial information to ensure that an independent review of the information from Strata is provided. Because normally the Strata manager will do a lot of work on the budgets on Strata schemes, but when we actually can't vote on levies, we don't get a vote. So understanding what your building needs and being an advocate for what needs to happen, and working with your fellow owners as well as the Strata manager to make sure that the best interests of the building regarding future levies and so forth, that's really important as well. So rather than saying, oh, why did light globes cost $10 when I can buy them for $9.70 at Bunnings or whatever it is, that's you know, like you need to manage cost, but I think thinking bigger and broader than that's really important for most strata buildings. And I think that's all I've got.
Sorry, I am still here, Rod. I'm just trying to keep up with the comments that are coming in. Yeah, they're coming in thick and fast. So yeah, that was fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And we will get that resource out to everybody this afternoon once Rod's had a chance to sort of go through and make sure everything's fine to distribute. Yeah, which should be really, really good. So we'll go through some questions now, if you're okay to do that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm still typing while I'm talking to you. So
no, typing like mad. Thank you for being on top of that, because I'm not very good at multitasking and talking at the same time.
No, it is. It's a little bit hard. Yeah, we've had people saying thank you so much and thanks. That was a really good overview. So excellent. Thank you. Okay, so we'll go back to the questions that we had submitted initially, and then hopefully we'll get to the other ones that have come in as well. So one of the ones we had come in, Rod, was we have a 15-lot complex. Can we be forced into a strata loan by our managing agent when we have no way of paying it back? And what happens when we don't pay anything back? What is the law likely to do to us?
Gosh. All right. So I'm just going to unpack this piece by piece. So the strata, I'm not sure why the strata manager is voting on such a matter. I presume that they may have proxies, but in which case they're only entitled to have one. So I'm not really sure why the strata manager would be forcing anyone into that. Maybe you feel forced. I'm not sure what so first of all, they don't have legislative power to force the owners to vote in a strata, to put in a strata loan for you. As I mentioned before, under section, I'll just go back to it. Section 106, an owners corporation must maintain common property. So maybe they're talking about you must maintain common property. In terms of what would happen if you had a strata loan and it wasn't being paid, usually they're effectively loans, as I understand it, loans secured against the cash flow, so they're unsecured. However, they probably have rights in there to recover from the strata scheme. I'm not sure if all owners are bound as personally on that. However, I think that the next step, if a strata loan wasn't repaid, would be a compulsory order from us, from the NCAT. And this first thing that the new strata manager under a compulsory appointment would do would be to raise a special levy on the owners. So I think you would have to pay it back in any case, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we've got another one. I'm a treasurer on a committee of 3 for a complex of 31, where one owner owns 19 of the 31 lots. Of his 19, 18 are undeveloped. However, he still has the liability of the 19 lots as far as fees are concerned. My question is, how do the owners like myself, who only have one lot, get a say in matters where he has the majority of properties? He seems to think whatever he says goes.
Yeah, so there is a section of the legislation. It depends on how this developer has structured their transactions. So I'm just trying to dig out the section of legislation. So if they own more than a certain percentage, they don't get a full vote. I'm just trying to dig it out for you now. So they've reduced their vote. This may be something I can assist with by email, just digging out this section of legislation, Nikki. But developer, if it's regarding building defects, developer can't vote on course of action to be taken in respect to building defects. Yeah, and I've just seen a comment from Frank Bowen, which is a good comment. If you've got a committee of 3 and the developer's only one of those, the other 2 people who are owners can outvote the developer. But there is a sense that you do need to somewhat get on with him and try and have him on board politically, because it may be easier to deal with him, on most things in a friendly way rather than going at guns at 10 paces because he is a majority owner in there. So I would have to see what the issues are, but there is a reduction in the vote for people, for developers who still own more than, I think it's more than half, but I just need to fish it out. Sorry, Nikki, I can't be, but I'm happy to address that by email.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much. Maybe if that person would like to get in touch with me via email, and we can get that legislation link back to you when we've got that.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Okay. How can a lot owner improve the communication with the Strata Committee? Emails about problems like failed waterproofing membrane, or questions about incidents like illegal parking are general, vague, or ignored. Follow-up emails to clarify information given are similarly obscure. For one problem regarding light spilling into our bedroom by common property lighting, I had to persist for 5 years. During this time period, I reported it to council, and the Strata Committee did not investigate properly and responded with untruths. This leaves me feeling disrespected and misrepresented as a nuisance. All issues of concern relate to the quality of the building and poor remediation works. There is a legal challenge by the Owners Corporation against this builder who happens to own properties on site.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So as I understand, I think that the owners, if you've got leaks into your apartment, and I understand that there may be Supreme Court matters on foot, but as I understand it, there's still a obligation for the Owners Corporation to maintain common property. It's really difficult with buildings that have significant building defects, but what a lot of our buildings would be, what our buildings would be doing if people have major leaks, would be trying to do it, see if they could do it some sort of temporary repair to the roof areas that are leaking. That may be an option for you. Reporting it to council is kind of going down the wrong path. It's like reporting a traffic incident to the fire brigades. So that the Fair Trading New South Wales is the appropriate way to go through. If they've got a dispute against the builder, it's likely they've retained a lawyer. So the lawyer would be able to advise the Owners Corporation on what they can do to help you. And I would be writing to the Owners Corporation, saying this has been outstanding for for 5 years. You require it to be fixed, and giving them the opportunity to do that. If they don't, I would submit an application to Fair Trading to have this matter dealt with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Rod. Thank you very much.
I've just dug out that section of legislation while I was talking, so I've multitasked. So,
fabulous.
Original owner who owns more than half the lots to be reduced is to be, for the purpose of determining an election for officers, the Owners Corporation, or members of the Strata Committee, appointing a Strata manager. The total units of entitlement of the original owner is not less than half the aggregate units of entitlement. The value of the vote in respect to the lots held by the original owner is taken to be reduced by 2/3, ignoring any fractions. So they can't just lob in all their cronies as Strata Committee members. So I think the strategy that the gentleman put through in the chat of just having 2 of the owners and on the committee, and only having the developer as one of the members is important. And the secretary holds all the power in Strata committees in New South Wales legislation. They can call meetings. So I would put yourself on as secretary as well.
Okay, wonderful. And just going back quickly to the one about the light spilling in, I know there were lots of things within that question, but just referring to the one about the problem with light coming in, we had Frank has just mentioned that he had a similar problem, and just as a practical solution, they got some cheap blackout curtains and it worked really well. So that might assist quickly there.
That's great.
Okay, so our committee has 7 positions. However, 2 members have recently sold and we are now 5. The 5 has decided not to fill the vacancies until the next AGM. Our Strata manager advises that a vote on any motion, the majority required is still 4 and not 3 of the 5 members. Is this correct?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. That's
Sorry,
nice.
yeah.
Quick one.
Yeah. I'm sorry. A vote on any motion is so no, sorry. So if you've got 7 on the committee and then there's a vote of, and then you've got 5 people, so the number at the AGM set at 7, then you've got 5. So you need 4 for a quorum, and then it's a majority of the quorum at a meeting. So if you've got 5 at a meeting, it's 3. If you've got 4 at a meeting, it's 3. So it's always going to be 3 people who are going to make up the quorum. However, the difference is a paper strata committee meeting, where you need a majority, or you need 4 votes for that, because you need that. So because you need 4 of the 7.
Okay, excellent. Can you please provide the correct channel of raising matters when it comes to issues pertaining to our strata complex? Should the lot owner first contact the strata manager, or is the strata committee the first port of call? We don't have a building manager. There is an owners corporation letterbox, but I don't know if it ever gets cleared out. If our strata committee has email addresses, we don't have access to these. Should this be in the AGM minutes once the committee has been approved? Is there a basic step-by-step chain of who to contact? And if the matter still hasn't been addressed, then what is the next step?
Yeah. So depending on what the matter is, the first port of call is to the strata manager for a response. So depending on what the request is, they'll either make a decision on the spot or they'll pass it back to the strata committee. It's highly unusual for strata committees to pass out their personal email address or phone numbers. I've even recently had this end in disaster, where my advice to the strata committee member gave their mobile phone number to an owner. The owner was upset and was texting late at night and so forth. My advice to the strata committee member was block that number. That normally doesn't happen, but the first protocol is the strata manager. Just send them an email or give them a call. If you want it passed on to the strata an email passed on to the strata committee, normally they'll do that, depending on the content and how it's written. If it's professional and courteous, normally that would get passed across to the strata committee. If it's guns blazing and all crazy, it probably won't, but I assume that it'll be a courteous professional email they'll be sent, so that should get passed to the committee.
Okay, thanks, Rod. And we did have another question that came in this is referring back to the quorum. So this one's from Louise. We had 9 elected members, 3 have resigned and 2 further won't attend. Can the 4 still hold meetings and make decisions?
How annoying. The answer is no, because you don't have a quorum if your number's 9. It's really annoying. Really annoying. I would, as a minimum, replace one of those spots with someone, or even what you can do is they can appoint. It's a bit technical. They can one of those 2 people that's the sleeper members. They can appoint one of the 4 as an alternate member, dial into the call or come to the meeting, open the meeting, give the alternate member and then leave. But it's really annoying. Practically, I would get someone to just turn up to the meetings.
Okay, thank you. And we've got one to do with COVID restrictions. So due to COVID restrictions, is it okay to delay our AGM until restrictions allow us to meet in person? We are an over 55 strata complex in Sydney with many residents in their 80s and 90s who we believe do not have the capacity to attend Zoom meetings. Our AGM was due in July. The committee have notified the owners in writing of the delay and the reason for that and have had no complaints.
You've got 12 months to call the AGM now. So the answer is yes. You used to have to call 1 month either side of the first AGM, but that's been lifted for the last 6 years. So the answer is, I think you're on the right track. Just push it back later this year, early next year, once you can. For an over 55s complex where people are going to struggle to use Zoom or Teams or whatever, I think that's really sensible. So I'll do that.
Great, thank you. That's really great. And we'll try and get that Q&A out fairly quickly too, Rod, because I'm sure people are experiencing that at the moment. Okay, we had one. We are a strata of 8 villas. We've had a new arrival in February who has broken over 12 strata laws without permission. We've reported and lodged our concerns and have a date for mediation with the department in September. The new owner wants to get rid of the strata manager and take over control. Most lot owners do not feel this resident has the ability. However, 2 owners have brought into his story. Our strata manager is helpful but not assertive and is also overwhelmed by this new owner's attitude and persistence. I've lived here for 46 years peacefully and now I feel I'm being forced out. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, you've got a condo commando who's joined your building. It's hard, isn't it? So I would suggest, Mike, it sounds like your strata manager's trying really hard. People use all sorts of tactics, including bullying, harassment, to get what they want in strata schemes. It's the ugly truth. We've seen it firsthand. It's terrible, really. Evil people prevail when good people stand around and do nothing. So the 4 or 5 owners that have, who are really interested in the strata scheme and have been doing a good job, they all need to keep coming to the annual general meeting. You need to speak to your strata manager about strategies on who you let onto your strata committee. I was actually going to talk about this, but I didn't know if it was too political. Who you let onto your strata committee. A lot of my buildings don't let everyone on. People think because they're an owner that they have an entitlement to be on the strata committee, when often their motives are wrong. My advice to my buildings is don't let them on, because it's just going to take things in the direction that's not in line with the legislation or anyone's best interest. So you have to be strong. This may be here to stay. Your options are to continue to unite and support your strata manager, or to curl up and die, or roll over or whatever, or sell. But most of my buildings would just take a stand and continue to stay strong and stay united, you're off to mediation. You may need to spend some money on lawyers to resolve this. This person may not go away. Heard a crazy story once about a block where an owner was so bad that the other owners, I don't know how they did it, they must have set up a special purse company or something, raised a special levy or raised money each to buy this owner out at an elevated price on the basis that they signed a deed and never to return to their strata. Now, this owner that they got, and that all went through, guess where this owner bought? And into another strata scheme. So this is real. And the way the legislation is written, I can tell you a million stories. My advice to you is to keep turning up to the meetings, supporting your strata manager if they're doing a good job, and be strong.
Okay, really good advice. I think that's a terrible situation to be in. So hopefully that person can resolve that situation. But when I read the question, I really felt for the person that was sending the question in. Okay, well, we're right on 9 o'clock. Oh, sorry, 9 o'clock. I'm over in WA,
11.
everyone. So we're right on 11 o'clock now. That's definitely the hour. We do have lots of questions that have been submitted. I've tried to copy down as many of them as I possibly can. If you're concerned that we won't get that, haven't got your question here, please feel free to go onto our site and use the Submit a Strata question and send that in for us. But all the questions that we have here, we'll certainly try and get back to you with responses. Now, at the end of the session, I didn't get to brief you on this, Rod. We had a few technical issues right at the start, and I usually just mention it before we begin, but I always like to ask at the end of the session if there's anything that you'd like to mention, some awards or something special that's happening, or something that you'd like to let our listeners know about.
In terms of our business, we are... well, we did win the medium-sized strata management award for New South Wales last year, which is great. Our team's continuing to grow. We're just I don't really want to do too much plugging because well, if I'm going to say something, I wanted to congratulate you on the work you're doing, your 500 newsletter. I think that's awesome. I think I can read through the comments. You've got a really awesome following as well, people that actually really care about their strata buildings. So yeah, congratulations, Nikki, and I look forward to continuing to work with you. So thanks for all you do.
Oh, thanks, Rod. That's lovely. Thank you very much. And obviously, we couldn't get the information that we do out without people like you contributing content and giving up time like you've given up to us this morning. I mean, that's a whole hour of your busy day and additional hours of setting up and doing all the work to get the presentation ready. So we really, really thank you. I'm sure that was a really valuable hour for everybody. And of course, we couldn't do it without our audience as well. So thank you so much to everyone that turns up. We had record numbers registering for today's session because it was such a fantastic session. So I thank you again. We always get good views on your sessions, and it's always, I think people know it's always valuable information. So thank you so much. And thank you for joining us, everybody. I hope you really enjoyed the session and got lots out of it, and keep an eye out for upcoming sessions in our regular correspondence that we send out.
Fantastic. I just saw someone's called in from Ireland. That's amazing. I'm not sure if they're owned in Sydney or if it's taking back from to their strata or condo in Ireland, but that's great. So congratulations, Nikki, and thanks to everyone for participating and learning hopefully a few things about how we do things.
Excellent. Thank you. And we'll see you next time, Rod. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.